Can LSU win the crowded SEC? That's Matt Moscona, our newest host here at the network, returning to Locked On as the host of Locked On LSU. Matt, it's great to have you here on the show, and I want to start with that question. You look at the SEC title odds, you see Georgia up there, of course they should, but you see Texas up there, you see Bama up there, you think about Ole Miss and what they've done this offseason. Do you think LSU is getting overlooked as a team that can win the SEC in 2024?
I don't think they're getting overlooked. I think they're right where they deserve to be. You lose the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, 2 first-round picks at receiver, your offensive coordinator that was a Broyles Award finalist, and last year you literally had the worst defense in the history of the program. LSU, with all of that, doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt. But they're a team ranked just on the fringe of the top 10, top 15, and they're a team that if you look at preseason odds and win totals, they're a team that's favored in every game except the road game against A&M. So I think there is warranted respect for LSU given all of those things, but also much warranted skepticism as well. So, Spencer, I think most people look at the SEC and say, all right, you got Georgia, Texas, and those two teams, if they're not in the 12-team playoff, something went horribly wrong. And then there's that group of Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, LSU, Missouri that all think they're going to be at least 10-2 and be in the playoff. But
everybody can't make it.
Yeah, I think you got at least 4 of those 5 fan bases that are going to be really upset come the beginning of December. And
how many SEC teams do you think are getting in the playoff? My pick has been 4. I think 5 is the max.
Oh, wow.
But I can't see it being under 3, so that's why I've landed on 4. I think that's the number.
So I've actually done this exercise, going back and looking at the number of years where you've had double. I think, would you agree with me? Like, you have to be 10-2.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I agree.
So the number of years where the teams that would be 10-2 and that would take one of 7 at-large spots, you're generally going to land on 3 as a guarantee, and I think 4 would be the stretch. I find it hard to believe you ever see a year where you get 5, where 3 of the 7 at large are from the SEC. I just don't know that the committee is going to allow that to happen. In the same way that a bunch of humans sat in a room and decided that an undefeated Florida State team was not worthy, like, they'll do whatever they need to do to make it look the way they want it to look. And I don't think it's going to look like the SEC getting 5 of 12 bids ever.
I think 5 is the upper limit, as I said. Here's where I come down, though. And we won't have the Florida State discussion right now because I just learned that we disagree on something, but that's okay. So I think that for the SEC, your 2 teams that get to the conference championship game are quite often, almost always, 12-0 or 11-1. Those 2 teams are a lock. Somebody else is 10-2 somewhere. That team is going to get in. Oftentimes, there's even another team that can get to 10-2. Now, that depends on schedules because you might have some SEC cannibalization to keep teams out. But the reason I look at 5, I was talking about this with Luke Robinson of Locked On Alabama earlier this week. 9-3 in the SEC, depending on your schedule, who you have wins against, will get, at the very least, consideration from the committee compared to a double-digit win team in the ACC or the Big 12, especially going forward in a post-FSU Clemson ACC. That league is going to be diminished. But you look at what, not reduced to nothing, but it's not going to be as strong. You look at what the Big 12 is now, I do not see how a Big 12 team can put together a schedule or a resume at 10-2 that is decidedly and markedly above what a 9-3 SEC team is able to put together. Again, schedule dependent, but on the whole, you're just not going to have that many you don't have any national title contenders in the Big 12. You have several that you go up against in the SEC.
And 2 years ago, we saw TCU in a college football playoff national championship game. So weird things happen. It's college football.
That's true.
You can do a 12-team playoff. I'll tell you what I think is, Spencer, the biggest pivot that we'll see is because you've done away with divisions, you've effectively eliminated the possibility ever of South Carolina getting back to an SEC championship game, of Mississippi State getting to an SEC championship game, Arkansas, like Missouri. It'll never happen again. because there's no division. So, or you can even look at like Iowa you could look at Iowa, all those Big Ten West teams, all those years that were, all you had to do was beat Wisconsin. Yeah, you beat Wisconsin and Northwestern, and boom, you're in a Big Ten championship game. It'll never happen again without division. So I think that's the biggest change that's coming as a result. I'm sorry about my son being a little noisy.
Oh, no worries whatsoever. I think people can handle it and such.
Oh,
but
that's real life, man. If you are watching and you have children, you understand. That's like one of the things we all learned on COVID, like newscasters with their kids walking in behind. Yeah. Like, we get it, man. We get it.
Yeah, I mean, never say never is, of course, the age-old statement, and I agree. I agree. It's difficult, but I mean, you also have programs right now that are operating at a high level, and it feels like they'll be at a high level forever. But if I told you in the 90s, by the way, one day Nebraska and Miami are going to struggle to make bowl games, they would have said, what are you talking about? You can't, they can't fall down that. Like, you never know. Mismanagement can go up to the highest levels sometimes, even in a sport as great and as popular as college football. But bringing this back to LSU's team for a moment, I think their offensive line is among the best in the SEC. They've got 2 tackles that regularly get first-round NFL draft grades. That is an exceedingly rare proposition. I think that helps Garrett Nussmeier, who certainly is not going to have 2 first-round ready receivers to throw to on the outside. Brian Kelly, year 3, a quarterback who I believe in, but not entirely certain just yet, capable offensive line, revamped defensive staff. Might this just come down, they're contending for an SEC championship in a legitimate way, might it just come down to whether that defensive staff has got the horses to get them there?
I think that's 100% the answer. I don't think LSU's offense is going to be the best in college football again. LSU led college football in scoring and total offense last year. I don't think they're going to be that good again. But, I think the real question is, can the defense be good enough? Can the defense be good enough to offset a really good offense? I think I'll put it to you this way. The LSU's offense is going to be good enough to beat any team that they play on a given day. The defense just has to be literally not the worst in the history of the program, which was the case a year ago. So, I mean, Spencer, I tell people this often. If you remember that 2019 LSU team, which was a great team that everybody remembers and won a national championship with Joe Burrow and all those guys, that defense was ranked 59th in the country in total defense. They weren't exceptional. They had some great talent, but they were great when they needed to be great, and they were good enough to complement the best offense in the country. I think that's similar for this year. There's plenty on the offensive side, man. They're going to be good and score a lot of points against everybody they play. The defense just needs to be like, you don't have to be top 10 or top 20, but could you be like top 60?
It's so funny that this is the way you're framing this LSU season, because the same can be said for LSU's week 1 opponent, USC, who a year ago everyone was saying, look, you don't have to be Utah or Oregon State defensively in the Pac-12 a year ago. Can you just be like Cal? Can you just be like ASU? Can you just be all right? And they couldn't, and they went 7-5. And so that week 1 matchup, your snapshot, I'll get you out of here on this. Your snapshot of that game against USC in Las Vegas, I think it's incredibly losable for LSU, despite their status as a 6.5-point favorite. I think USC is good. I love their defensive coordinator hire. I think this is a battle of which new defensive staff is more capable of making an instant impact.
You know that, by the way, LSU has lost 4 consecutive season openers. So nothing should be considered a given for LSU in that opener against SC.
I'm sure the comment section will agree.
They should. You know that Spider-Man meme where it's like the Spider-Man looking at you all point at each other? That's LSU and USC. I mean, they both
are
third-year head coaches, replacing Heisman-winning quarterbacks, new defensive coordinators off of teams a year ago that their defenses were atrocious. I mean, it is really both fan bases that have tremendous expectations. I mean, this really is like each team looking in a mirror at the other. So I think I like Garrett Nussmeier better than Miller Moss. I don't know that I can tell you LSU's defensive talent is any better than SC's, but it may not have to be. It's really going to be who's competent defensively and who makes the fewest mistakes. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. But if LSU wins that game out the chute, they got a great shot to start 5-0. And then, man, you look at that game in October against Ole Miss, and I think that's the game that
Circle
really
game
determines if LSU is a contender.
Yeah, I think that's their most important game, is that matchup with Ole Miss. Win or lose against USC, I think that game comes down to define what their season ends up looking like. Why don't we call week 1 LSUSC? And we'll just kind of go from there because they're so similar. Matt Moscona, Locked on LSU. Check him out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Matt, thanks so much.
Thanks, Spencer.